passo come se deve lavorare con la pastiglia.
Tutti a sedere in tribuna per favore, per non togliere.
Monza Autodrome near Milan, a fitting scene for the last European Grand Prix of 1981. For Monza is the world's oldest and most historic circuit, in continuous use since 1922, and the scene of countless battles between the world's greatest drivers in the world's greatest cars. It is steeped in motor racing tradition, and no other crowd even rivals the informed fanaticism of Monza's tifosi. And this year, their enthusiasm's rewarded by a battle royal in the World Championship. For, with only 3 races to go, Carlos Reutemann and Nelson Piquet share the lead, just 11 points ahead of Jacques Lafitte, with reigning world champion Alan Jones still very much in the running, and Alain Prost, Gilles Villeneuve and John Watson with at least a mathematical chance of ending the season as world champion. And as they line up on the starting grid of Monza's 3.6-mile, 135-mile-an-hour lap, it's René Arnoux' Turbo Renault in pole position for the 4th time this year. His teammate Alain Prost third fastest, but splitting the Renaults, there's the Williams of World Championship leader Carlos Reutemann ahead of Lafitte, Jones, Piquet, Watson and Pironi. Nigel Mansell halfway up the grid in 12th place. Derek Daly is 19th, and at last, one of the Turbo Tolmans has qualified. Brian Henton's in a richly deserved 23rd place. There's going to be a tremendous blast of noise when those lights go from red to green. It's Arnoux taking the lead from Reutemann in third position, Didier Pironi in 4th place. There is Bruno Giacomelli. The 2 Renaults are now spreading out across the circuit, and Reutemann is trying to drive, and he is indeed succeeding at driving round the outside of the Renault and up into 2nd place. Terrific performance. Pironi is in 4th place, Lafitte jockeying for position. And as they come down to the 2nd chicane, it's Reutemann in 2nd place, it's Pironi in the Ferrari in 3rd place, and challenging for 2nd, Lafitte weaving, and away goes the Renault, round the 1st of the Lesmo bend, round the 2nd Lesmo bend, and now down to the Vialoni, the left-hander, and then to Ascari, which is on his way to now, and Jacques Lafitte is really moving that Talbot around, and Pironi challenging for 2nd place, going to try and take, and he's done it. Pironi up into 2nd place, ahead of Carlos Reutemann, down into 3rd position. Then the Renault, Alan Jones is in 4th place, Jacques Lafitte is in 5th place, and there's a roar of excitement and approval from the crowd as they hear that Pironi has moved up into 2nd place, and is he going to be able to challenge the Renault as it comes out of the Parabolica at the end of lap 1 with 52 laps to go. Car number 28, Pironi in 2nd position. And it's flashing down the straight now, the Renault pulling away, and still Reutemann. So
perfect advantage there. What happens on the first lap is that the lead drivers tend to take it a little bit steadily around the corners so they got their tyres warmed up and things, and the Ferrari doesn't handle so well, but Pironi was able to keep up with them around the corners and then blast past them on the straight, and he's come right up from his grid position into second place, and he's now going to be a very difficult man to pass as usual because of the power of the Ferrari. I don't think he's going to be a threat to the Renault, who's building a little lead in front of him, because quite frankly the chassis, as the others settle down, I think Pironi is going to struggle to keep his place, but the others are going to have the usual terrible fight to try and get past him because of that power advantage that he's enjoying. But he's going very well at the moment.
So, Alain Prost leading, and incidentally we just have to stop talking as the cars pass this grandstand position because the noise bounces back off the roof. Now, coming out of the Ascari bend, down the long run to the Parabolica, this is 160 miles an hour, down to the third gear right-hander, the Parabolica. There's Villeneuve through, and Jones, and Giaconelli, and Piquet, and John Watson, and De Angelis, and Nigel Mansell, and Daly. And Giaconelli, there is Patrese. Jerrier goes through, 3 laps completed. Prost leads, and Arnoux is challenging for third position. Arnoux through, ahead of Carlos Reutemann in third place.
Watching Lafitte, he's looking in very tigerish form. I think it's a big race for Lafitte. He's got to score and score well in this race to keep his World Championship hopes alive. That was one of the Brabham stops. I think that was Hector Rabat pulling off on the side there.
Alain Prost increasing his lead down into the Parabolica, and you can see the gap now as he goes around this ever-tightening right-hander, coming up to complete lap 4 with ahead of Didier Pironi, and the gap between them is, and I will tell you that Lafitte is moving up, Prost completes the lap, and the gap between Alain Prost and Pironi, now Arnoux goes through into second place, and Carlos Reutemann is having a tremendous scrap for fourth position with Jacques Lafitte, and the gap between Alain Prost in the lead, and now the second place man, René Arnoux, is 4.14 seconds on lap 5 out of 52.
I think Lafitte's got a particularly big problem now. He's going very well indeed, but when he passed Reutemann, he became out of the Parabolica, putting up with Reutemann, and then actually was repassed virtually by Reutemann on the straight. So I think Lafitte is not very quick in a straight line, so he's got an even bigger problem than any of the others. He's now leading the normally aspirated race, and he's got Pironi, of course, to set about.
And Alain Prost has made the fastest lap of the day so far, 1 minute 38.9 seconds, and that is something like 3 seconds slower than the lap record as he shapes up to complete another lap. Across the line he goes, and the battle behind him rages as you look at the unique Monza scoreboard, and now Lafitte is going up to take that third position away from Pironi. The gap is 4.9 seconds between Prost the leader and Arnoux in second place. And Reutemann there, and Arnoux is in second position, Prost ahead of him, Lafitte ahead of Pironi.
Well, that was fantastic. Lafitte getting past Pironi. He's now going to be a very happy man to have that between him and Reutemann and the rest of the pack. Villeneuve is using his power well, he's moving slowly up, but Lafitte is really charged. and one of the Ferraris is blown up by the look of it. That looks Villeneuve, well, that's turbocharger gone, very spectacular. These turbo cars certainly blow up nicely when they do. There's a little fire in the turbocharger, but it all seems to do well. He seems to be pressing on those going to pass it.
Well, Villeneuve had exactly the same thing happen to him in practice, and he just toured in to complete the lap. And I was talking to engineer Tomini, one of the Ferrari head men today, and they use an enormous number of turbochargers. Prost has gone through to complete his 6th lap, and he is now well ahead of René Arnoux in 2nd place. Jacques Lafitte is in 3rd. Pironi is still 4th, and Reutemann right behind him in 6th place. In 6th position now is Bruno Giacomelli. Because you certainly can't change a turbo like you can change tires and wheels. Carlos Reutemann has moved up a place again, and the gap now between the leader, that is to say Alain Prost, and we are on lap 8 out of 52, and René Arnoux is the second turbocharged Renault. Position, and John Watson is 9th. Through. Now look back and you'll see Reutemann is ahead of Lafitte and ahead of Pironi. Reutemann in 3rd position. Lafitte is 4th. Pironi is 5th. And to confirm that, Gilles Villeneuve gets out of the race. So one Ferrari out, and there's one still going very strongly indeed.
Yes, definitely.
Well, as they go across the line to complete their 10th out of 52, look at that battle. But leading the two Renaults up into 3rd position now has gone Pironi. In 4th, there is Alan Jones fighting his way through. So it's the field. There is Pironi and Piquet. So, Reutemann is third. Alan Jones coming up very quickly indeed in fourth position. And behind him are Jacques Lafitte and Didier Pironi with a long way to go. And Jones is, like Reutemann, is finding this race absolutely critical because Alan Jones is in fourth place in the World Championship. He's ahead of Nelson Piquet at the moment, who has got ahead of Didier Pironi. Is obviously in trouble. He's dropping back, and out of the race goes one of the Lotuses. He's going very slowly indeed as Eddie Cheever closed up on him. It looks like Nigel Mansell, but he's not out of the race very obviously from the way he's racing down the straight there. And that is Slim Thorgood's ATS, and it has gone off the course, and so has number 26, and that is Jacques Lafitte. Jacques Lafitte then, and that transforms the World Championship. Look at the rear tire on Jacques Lafitte's car, and that was obviously why he slowed down. It's you see the blisters. What happens when the rubber is too soft is that it overheats and it actually bubbles up and blisters like that, and you get less and less grip. And I would think that was certainly a contributory factor to Lafitte's exit from the circuit in that summary fashion. That sand stuff is absolutely marvellous. It really stops the cars very quickly indeed. And oh, it's raining out on the back of the circuit. It's very wet indeed. So we got rain down the far end. We're very close to the Parabolica there. It's not raining here yet, but it looks like it's really wet the circuit. Now that may well be why those cars are off. But that sand stuff that they use stops the cars extremely quickly and is marvellous. I think they really should incorporate it in as many circuits as possible because it's very effective indeed. The only trouble is it's mighty difficult to get your car out of it once it's in. Alan Jones has moved up. He's past Reutemann. Jones may be in pain. He's pretty grisly when he's not in pain, and I think Jones in pain is quite a challenging thing. Anyway, he's certainly driving a very hard race. He's really charging now. And that was Derek Daly spinning off. Derek Daly, you can see how wet it is. This is making things extremely hazardous. Off. I can't identify. It's Arnoux. I can tell from the dark overalls as the driver walks away that René Arnoux and the other car I just can't identify. And it's Alboretto's car. We're almost certain that it's Alboretto's car, the white one that is stationary on the circuit. And now Alan Jones has got his chance. Attention, and off goes another one, and that was another Tyrrell. I think that was Eddie Cheever's car, and you can see how dangerous the corner is. Salazar, the Chilean driver, and I suspect that the organisers will now be thinking very seriously about possibly stopping the race. And there is Brian Henson. This is the first time we have ever seen a Coleman in a Grand Prix, a Formula One Grand Prix. But Brian Hinton going very slowly indeed as Alboreto jumps out of his car, number 3. He's been hoping, I think, that the marshals will be able to get him started again. It's Eddie Cheever's car. Eddie Cheever then is out, not Alboreto. I apologise for the wrong identification, but Eddie Cheever there, out of the Tyrrell. And now this is the battle for third position, and it is lap 16. And then sprint through is Reutemann on the inside, with Piquet tucked up right behind him, and Bruno Giacomelli challenging, and Giacomelli is taking the place. Bruno Giacomelli, the young Italian in the V12 new Alfa Romeo, then is up and right up to the head of that match.
Well, this rain has certainly made things a bit exciting. The great thing is that we've got all 3 of the main championship protagonists, only Lafitte missing from the top 4 places, right up there together. And the rain's certainly throwing things about. Bruno Giacomelli has got the bit right between his knees. In his home Grand Prix, he's going very quickly indeed around the wet bit, which is where he's been making up a lot of time. And it remains to be seen if he's going a bit too quickly or not, because these other drivers are pretty experienced, and then the trick really here is to tiptoe around the wet bit. Don't worry about it doing too quickly, because one slip there and you're off, and that's the end of your race. Nelson Piquet's moving up as well. He's into 4th place now. We've got that little group, and they all bunch up around the wet patch. They're heading down to the Parabolica right now, and Reutemann is certainly in need of points for the championship at the moment. Piquet, meanwhile, has moved up, and that's an overall shot. You can see it's misty. It's very overcast. There they are, slipping and sliding. As Giacomelli coming down to the Parabolica, that's a back marker he's just in front of there. He's just that. Here comes the big bunch. Piquet's now got the better of that bunch. Alan Jones, you see, who's clear at the moment in 2nd place, ahead of Giacomelli, but Giacomelli must now be catching him. In fact, Giacomelli is now in sight, which he wasn't a little while ago.
Well, the gap between Jones and Giacomelli is 6.8 seconds. Out of the points at the moment is Carlos Reutemann. There he is, storming along at the back, behind John Watson, who loses it. That's John Watson, and a very nasty one indeed. Torn the whole of the back off the car. And that's a very, very bad one indeed. Let's watch this replay as John Watson loses it and goes backwards into the Armco.
There's a very heavy shunt there. Watson just caught the curb there and he backed it in absolutely square on, and that's a bit of flame as all the fuel lines. Watson's perfectly all right. He's got out of the car and he's walked away. That was just a flash of fuel as the fuel lines broke, and it was, in fact, the back end of the car came off, and Reutemann, following there, just avoided it. The very fine. I don't know whether Reutemann damaged his car on the barrier or not, but he did seem to keep going. And Watson there is in half a car. That's the gearbox unit you see on the left, and Reutemann apparently got through that all right. Alboreto caught the back end of it. He was the 2nd car to arrive on the scene. and has damaged his car, taking evasive action, which is, of course, a very bad luck for him.
There is Didier Pironi ahead again of Nelson Piquet, and that should mean that Carlos Reutemann is back in the points again. Yes, Reutemann goes through, but he's got right on his tail Andrea de Cesaris. A replay, this is, of the John Watson incident. See, he loses the back of the car. It sprints right around, goes across the track, backwards into the Armco. Then a great flash of flame as the fuel lines erupt. The car continues spinning, the whole of the back end of it torn off. Another flash of flame, and the back end of the car goes right across the circuit as the bodywork flies up into the air. And we saw him get out, so he's presumably okay, and a very, very lucky man, because you're going very, very quickly when you come out of the corner there. It's about a 160 mile an hour corner.
The moment of madness seems to be passing now, because that wet patch down at the parabolica it's not dry yet, but it seems to be drying out, and the cars are definitely getting a lot more grip through there. The drivers have familiarised themselves with it, but we certainly have some fantastic action with places changing away. As Nigel Mansell's Lotus being pushed away, obviously Z car pass, we don't know what's wrong with it.
Into the pits comes Giacomelli. Well, the man who was in third place. I've said this before this season, but it's beginning to look as though we're going to have very few cars finish the Italian Grand Prix, because Giacomelli is effectively out of the running. That puts Carlos Reutemann up another place, and the positions on lap 27, which is the one that we're on now, confirm that Alain Prost is leading from Alan Jones, with Nelson Piquet in third position. Up into third position has gone Nelson Piquet. Up into fourth position, with only 12 cars left, has gone Didier Pironi. Up into fifth place has gone Mario Andretti in the second Alfa Romeo, and down into sixth position, and now much lower, of course, Bruno Giacomelli, and that means that the new sixth place man will be Carlos Reutemann. And it looks to me as they go down towards the parabolica, so the conditions are brightening. There's been a very distinct brightening of the skies over our grandstand position here. And Piquet holding that third place, easing away from Pironi, who has yet to pass Brian Hinton in the Tolman. And it's Bruno Giacomelli back in the pit. Well, it's obviously, whatever the problem with the Alfa Romeo is, this is the new one, it's first race. Whatever the problem is, it certainly isn't tires, because there is no activity around the wheels at all. The mechanic at the back has got the air starter plugged into the Alfa Romeo. He fires it up, and away goes Bruno Giacomelli. Watching the battle for fourth position then between Reutemann, who's going to come out of Pironi's slipstream, I think, as they come down the parabolica, and try and take that fourth position away from the Frenchman in the Italian Ferrari. But he won't get round the outside of Didier Pironi. Not there, or if he does, it's going to be absolutely superhuman driving. Meantime, Piquet is just about the length of the straight that Pironi and Reutemann have entered now, ahead of these two. Pironi goes through and completes his 37th lap in this 52-lap race, still in fourth position. Reutemann comes up to him again. It's obvious that the Williams, as we well know, handles much better than the Ferrari, and he closes right up as they go through the lefts and rights of the Rettificio, up now towards the Roggia as they go round the Curva Grande, that very famous fourth gear corner, and it's 160 miles an hour here, and now Reutemann's going to try and get through on braking, and he's done it. Reutemann takes fourth position on lap 38 from Didier Pironi, and if he can pull out a gap, and he's doing it already as they go into the Lesmo bends, if he can pull out a gap, Pironi won't be able to do anything about it as they go down to the Parabolica. Replay.
Yes, Reutemann just doing a classic out-braking manoeuvre. He's been noticeable how he's been closing up on the Ferrari under-braking every time. The Ferrari, honestly, it's sad to say with such a fine pedigree and that great name, but it really is a bit of a tank. But it's got this magnificent engine with a great deal of power, and its performances really have depended entirely on that this year. And you can see now that Reutemann has cheered up again. All wet weather stuff is forgotten, and he's really having a little charge now and going very well indeed.
The very, very good news is that John Watson, who crashed so spectacularly earlier on, is perfectly okay. He said he hooked two wheels over the curb, spun it and lost it. Well, we know that, and we're enormously relieved to know that John Watson is okay as the Alfa Romeo comes into the pits. And it's Mario Andretti. We've had Mario Andretti, who was in sixth position and catching Nelson Piquet, Pironi, catching Pironi. There is Pironi, and to confirm it, there behind Pironi is Elio De Angelis, who has now moved up into sixth position. Of course, on lap 43, with Alain Prost 18 seconds ahead of Alan Jones, and Alan Jones is 36 seconds ahead of Nelson Piquet. So unless either Prost or Jones have some kind of mechanical trouble, it would seem that the first two places in the Italian Grand Prix are settled. De Angelis is in a perfect position to take fifth place from Didier Pironi, and he does it. He goes through on the inside, and Elio De Angelis comes out of the Parabolica at the end of his 44th lap in fifth position. The race leader, Alain Prost. He's going on his way down to the Vialoni, the first half of the comparatively new chicane. And then from the Vialoni, which is a left-hander, he goes into the Ascari bend in third gear. There he is now, Alain Prost, the Grand Prix sensation of 1981, as we look at the Frenchman catching up on Pironi. He's going to lap everybody up to certainly seventh position, which is Andrea Di Cesaris. And when Alain Prost comes out of the Parabolica, which he is entering now, and entering outside into the long straight down to the Rettificio, it will be to start his last lap. Over the line goes Alain Prost. He is now on lap 52, which is his last lap, and we'll see what the gap is between him and Alan Jones. It had been extended to 11 seconds, and Jones, far from gaining on Prost, is now definitely dropping back, because it's 16 seconds now. If anybody's in trouble on the last lap, it's Alan Jones. And don't forget that he has got a broken finger, and his engine sounding very, very rough as he rumpled over the line. But Alan Jones there in second position has got an enormous cushion between himself and Nelson Piquet, 35 seconds, so if he can just keep the Williams going, he will be secure for second place. And Piquet in third position is now just 4.25 seconds ahead of Carlos Reutemann, and will therefore be leading the World Championship by 1 point. And the World Championship really is going down to the last race of the year. And who is that? It looked like Piquet from the back, the red helmet, and it's Reutemann gaining. There's an engine explosion, and it's Piquet. It is Piquet. On the very last lap, Reutemann takes that third position from Nelson Piquet. Tremendous drama, and Carlos Reutemann has held his position in the World Championship. And Nelson Piquet, can he finish the last lap? What enormous drama, because Didier Pironi is now gaining as Alain Prost comes out of the Parabolica. The Frenchman in the Renault is going to win his third Grand Prix of 1981. He crosses the line, touring. Alain Prost tours in, but the sensation is not so much that Prost has won, but where is Alan Jones going to be, because he was dropping back on the second lap. There is the Australian coming out of the Parabolica. He's going to be in second position, but he looks to me as though he's going pretty slowly. We're looking, of course, at the Brazilian in the Brabham, and he's obviously got no motive power, and he's touring off.
Attenzione, il tempo del vincitore. 1 ora 26 primi, 33 secondi e 8. Media 209,045. Fermarsi per favore, non invadere l'arrivo.
Italian Grand Prix more than lives up to its exciting promise. With only 8 cars running at the finish, Alain Prost wins his 3rd Grand Prix from Alan Jones, with Carlos Reutemann snatching 3rd place as Nelson Piquet retired on the very last lap. 4th at the end, Elio De Angelis ahead of Didier Pironi, with Piquet being classified 6th and Brian Hinton 10th in the Tolman.